Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar, a round 2, game 3 preview edition. And we've got a full house, Ray. This may tie the most number of guests we've had. But we got plenty of chairs, the grill's going, the smoker's going. Cooler's full. Calgary is normally a hockey hotbed this time of year, but it's probably a little quiet in your area, except for maybe surrounding your area.
Yeah, you're exactly right. When you said the smoker,
your place.
when you said the smoker was going, I thought you were referring to all of the wildfires in Alberta that are going on. Nothing near Calgary, but yeah, it's crazy up here. The whole province is on fire. We're hoping for the best for everyone else, but right here, the Storm Cellar is a very hot place. To be sure, especially, and you're right, and I know what you were alluding to. When your wife cheers for the Leafs and you cheer for the Hurricanes, and we're on that.
And they're both in round 2, which hasn't happened in at least 19 years.
It hasn't happened. So I was really happy for her. She's a little bit more concerned than I am right now, but we'll get to that a little bit. Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll get to that a little bit later there. But right now, it's time to introduce all of our guests in the Storm Cellar. This is amazing. And first, of course, Mike Solarte, former guest. Mike joining us. He's stepping away from the golf course. And I got it to give us a little bit of time. And unbelievable. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We're going to get your expertise on this later on, but thank you for joining us again. It was a great time meeting you during the Stadium Series day, and very, very happy to have you back.
Glad to be here, gentlemen. And for those listeners, it's not that I'm out there playing golf. This is not it. And not taking me away from a round of golf that I'm playing. I'm actually covering the Wells Fargo Championship. We got final round action today with Wyndham Clark starting the day with a 2-shot lead over Xander Schauffele. So it's going to be exciting stuff at the Quail Hollow Club. But happy to be here because any day talking about hockey is a great day. So again, thanks, guys.
It's hard to beat a nice day on the links, too. I mean, to be fair.
Well, it is.
I would put hockey 1, but golf, even being on the course has got to be top 5, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was a college golfer myself, so this is, as I told my wife, this is the worst, greatest week of my life because I'm at a golf course, but I'm not allowed to play. So that's but again, I'm able to watch the best players in the world, and it's a great field. And so we've had a great time this week covering the tournament, and it all comes to a head in round 4 today. So it'll be fun.
And so we've got 2 more guests now too, and this man went kind of viral. To say the least,
in the right ways.
In the right way, absolutely, in the absolutely right way. Bruce Barlow joins us, and you may not know the name, but you would know him as the man who received a jersey in the middle of the game after he was wearing a Flyer Hurricane jersey celebrating Gostibehere. It was an unbelievable event. Bruce, thank you very much for joining us because we're bringing you here to talk about your whole story, and it's absolutely amazing. Bruce, thanks for joining us in the Storm Cellar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to be on, right? I mean, this is a first for me, something that I literally never thought would happen when I did this on Tuesday, right? And it's just been a surreal week. I mean, just from being on a podcast and people reaching out, it's something that it's funny. You do one thing, it just explodes out of nowhere in the best of ways, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And also joining us, a man who kind of helped bring the story right to a head, to bring it all full circle. Brad, we have Matt Goldman here.
Exemplifies what being a Caniac is about, in my opinion. Like a perfect example of this is how Caniacs treat our guests in our barn.
Matt Goldman, and I have to apologize, Matt. The name of your company just escaped my brain, but you are the man who saw the situation and said, you know what? I see that jersey. Let's make it real. And you numbered it up and everything. I'm looking at it in the background there in Bruce's picture there, and it looks fantastic the way you did it. Thank you, Liberty Bell Jerseys. Matt Goldman of Liberty Bell Jerseys, thank you very much for joining us. And we can't wait to hear your part in all of this too, because it's just amazing. I love how you stepped up.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a really fun opportunity and said, let's go. So.
Fantastic. So let's get into it now. In the Storm Cellar, we've always taken pride in the fact that we like to talk to the fans, the Caniacs and jerks out there, how they became hockey fans and stuff like that. And Bruce, you fill the bill there at this point. We've been with Mike before. You're the man we're focusing on right now. So what we like to do is have people tell us about how they got into hockey, what their fandom is, how they became Caniacs. And even if they aren't Caniacs, we just like to hear the whole story. Bring us to how you got into it.
I mean, I think now I've been adopted into the Caniacs, and then the jerks, right? I'm learning that.
You have no choice
now, right? I have no choice. I feel like I have to, kind of accept what my fate is now. But
there you go.
Obviously, from the jersey, as we can all tell, started as a Flyers fan. Hockey's always been something in my family. Dad obsessed, right? Grew up with a dominant team for a while. Obviously, that's not the case now, but hopefully we'll get back there soon. But yeah, I mean, and it was one of those things where when I was in high school, there was this moment where it was Eastern Conference Finals, Flyers, Bruins. Game 3, and we were down 3-0 in the series, right? And we came back to win in Game 7 after being down 3-1. And you're part of that. And we were down in Philly watching the game. They opened the stadium up, so since the game was in Boston, everybody could come down and watch. And that stadium, you would have thought they were playing at home. It exploded. It was nuts. We were out in the streets afterwards celebrating. Obviously, we lost to the Blackhawks. That wasn't the best series of that, but it was just
Solarte's happy.
Yeah.
He's a Chicago boy.
After being a part of that, it's just like, how do you go back, right? I mean, it was, besides the Eagles, like the Flyers have always been something that I've just obsessed over, right? And when we drafted GhostBear, I think we drafted him in like 2014 or 15, something like that. Some kid who just came out of winning the Frozen Four, right? He had all this hype around followed him really closely because he was, between him and like Provorov on the Flyers, right? It was those two guys were just these young core pieces because our team was like, we had a lot of older guys, right? Like Voracek, Simmons, Drew, all those guys. So those were two pieces that, okay, this is going to be like the building blocks of the team. Obviously he dealt with some, I think it was like knee injuries, right? Going forward. So when I think he got traded to Arizona before he came to the Canes. Not a fun day, right? I have his jersey. I was like, okay, well, that sucks.
Doesn't that usually happen all the time? You purchase a jersey and your guy gets traded. That happened to me so many times. It's like a death knell. You go buy the jersey and you light it up and you're so proud of it. And then all of a sudden next day they're gone.
You got to wait until they sign that 8x8.
I stopped buying jerseys. I have a Wayne Simmons jersey, a Claude Giroux jersey, a GhostBear jersey.
Oh my gosh.
And I bought a Konechny jersey. And if we got rid of him, I think I would just cry a little bit because I'd be sad.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I just stopped buying jerseys in general because I'm like, this is all, every person I love goes, right?
Yeah.
It's the ongoing joke. But so when he got picked up by you guys, I was pumped. I was like, oh, this is great. I get to have some investment in the team because when I moved here in 2020, I lived in Philly for a while and then I lived in DC and then I moved here in 2020. Since it's the only professional sports team, right? I was like, okay, if we're not playing the Flyers, I'm going to root for them. It's fun. Like the atmosphere, everything the stadium does is amazing. I mean, where can you find $5 beers at any other stadium in the entire country, right? I was like, this is incredible. What have I been missing out on? So when we picked him up, I was like, when you guys picked him up, I was like, okay, I'm going to start wearing the jersey of the games. And every time I wear a Flyers jersey to a game where they're not playing, every time it's like, you're at the wrong game. You know, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? So that's where this whole story kind of started. I was texting with a buddy and I was like, I want to wear the GhostBear jersey since he's on the team, but it just feels so weird because I'm not a Devils fan at all. Like, we can be clear about that. But it's one of those things where I was like, I want to show people that I'm rooting for the Canes, but doing it in like a comical kind of like satiric way. So why don't I just draw the worst but recognizable Canes logo that I can and just wear it, right? And that's, I was walking in the stadium and there were a couple people that were, they were the same thing. A Flyers jersey. I turn around, I'm like, it's a Canes jersey. What are you talking about? And there's people cracking up. There's the guy who parked next to us in the tailgate actually like knew GhostBear somehow. So we like took a picture in the beginning of the night. So I sat down. Our seat, we had amazing seats. One of my buddies we were like 2 rows up from the glass. It was unbelievable. And I'm talking to my friend and the girls next to us like tap me on the shoulder and like, oh, you're on the Jumbotron. And I like blacked out for 10 seconds. I start I start doing this with my hands. I don't know what happened in those 10 seconds. So fast forward, like 10 minutes, somebody goes, oh my God, you're on the Canes Twitter page. What? Okay, cool. I'm still not thinking anything of it. And it's starting to like pick up through the night. Every time I go to get a beer or go to the bathroom, people are like, oh, you're the guy. That's hilarious. Oh my God. And I'm like, cool, awesome. And then it really escalated when it was in the middle of the third period. Stormy's coming down and he's shooting t-shirts out. And I'm yelling, I'm like, Stormy, let me get a t-shirt. Look, I'm wearing the wrong jersey, like making jokes. And he turns to me and just pulls a jersey out. In that moment, I was like, I know exactly what's happening. I've gone nice. The crowd went ballistic. You would have thought like in a moment they won like the Eastern Conference final. The whole crowd started going ballistic. And I was like, I have to do it, right? So I take the jersey off, put it on. And from there, it's just been escalation, right? I woke up the next day with thousands, like literally, I don't really use Twitter that much, basically to like troll Philly sports when I'm unhappy with them, right? But it's one of those things where I got thousands of notifications, people I haven't talked to in like 10, 15 years reaching out to me like, this is a moment I will literally never forget. Like, it's so unique, so funny. And it's just been, and the react, like, just being from Philly, right? You expect the pushback to be negative. It's all been positive. You look at the comments, it's like, this is what sports are about. Like, this is awesome. And it's just been really fun. It's been a really fun experience. It's not something that I ever thought would happen. It's not something that I expected going into that game. And the last week has been incredible. And obviously Matt played a big thing in this where he reached out. I mean, it was so nice for him. I'm so happy to see all the recognition that he's getting, just because he's a really genuine person who just wanted to like do something fun, right? And he customized the jersey and it looks unbelievable. You would have thought they sold it in a pro shop. So yeah, it's just been a really cool experience to say the least.
So wicked, Bruce. And I was just gonna go ahead, Brad, because I know you got something there.
I was just gonna say real quick, especially on like social media, every fan base gets it, but Canes fans are known for being, always on the defensive, right? They're always quick to attack when people kind of badmouth, which is not completely untrue. But that's one of the things that, why we started our podcast and everything is like, I think Caniacs for the most part are a don't start nothing, won't be nothing kind of group, right? If you come in friendly and energetic and like you did, where I'm going to wear, my Flyers jersey, but I'm going to put this, funny drawing of a Hurricanes logo, the most gracious people. I always go back to 2006. Oilers fans came down who didn't have tickets and there was no static. There was no trouble. They brought Canadian Molson and we brought barbecue and everybody had a good time. It's, the people who think of Canes fans as actual jerks and not fun-loving jerks, in my mind, are typically people who kind of, they kind of start it first. And I think Caniac Nation is a very much a you may start it, but we're going to finish it kind of group. And I love to see that you're seeing the reaction that we would expect, which is the positivity and all. I love the fact that like Flyers Nation is also hopping on that bandwagon and having fun with it. Because they're right. This is what sports is about, right? We do have the things that divide us. We're going to clash, right? We're going to go head to head. My neighbors are all Bruins fans because I live in Boston. And so, every time I wear my Chatfield or my Kochetkov jersey outside, I get some looks sometimes, but it's all in good fun, right? Nobody's really upset about anything. So, and then when I saw Matt's post offering to customize it for you, I've been following him on Twitter for a long time, and I was like, that's A, it's epic, and then B, what he came up with looks phenomenal. So I definitely want to hear from Matt about, A, I want to hear about the GhostBeare is too many letters, because was wicked funny. But then, like you said, like that looks like doesn't look like, that's a professionally done jersey. And, Matt, I don't know if you can like copyright that before they show up in the eye. Cause like as people went crazy for the Kree Ethan Bear jerseys, and I can't imagine you haven't already gotten requests from other people for GhostBear jerseys.
Yeah, man. So I saw him do that. I was like, we got to put GhostBear on the jersey for him, right? Like, come on. And I was sitting there, I was like, somebody just had me do a GhostBear Arizona jersey, which was like, it's so many letters. And I was just like, please don't make me write all that out. And I had the idea because there was a Flyers jersey years ago that the Flyers put out that had had emojis on it, but they're full color on white twill because they used white twill nameplates. So it was full color and really pretty. And I was like, well, I can't do that for the Hurricanes. They don't do that. So I sat there, I started drawing a ghost and a bear, and put it all together, cut it out. And I talked with Bruce. I sent him some concepts of like, here's, options A, B, C, and D. We picked the design, went for it, cut it out. I was like, this is going to look amazing. It was hilarious looking. It's adorable looking. My wife is like, if we re-sign Ghost, I want one. And so, yeah, I've had quite a few people ask about it. And it's one of those things when I make these like kind of more creative, artistic jerseys, because this is my creative outlet, right? This is what I do for fun and creativity. I always like to check with the person who I do a jersey for, like, hey, do you want this to be a 1-for-1, or is it cool if I do more? And Bruce was like, dude, do as much as you want to. It's great. So I'm happy to, anybody who wants one, I'm like, sure, why not? So.
And we'll make sure to get all your contact info here at the end of the show too, because
sure,
I'm sure you're going to get a handful of orders at a minimum for GhostBear, much less other things that I know you do. I definitely will connect with you offline. I mentioned the blank CCM jersey I have, early 2000s white home CCM jersey that is dying for a number one.
Yeah, Archie, good old Archie. It's what a great story, Bruce and Matt coming together, and this is everything that I've said about Hurricane fans all over and what they are. And Brad summed it up perfectly. Like, we were just a community, almost family like. And yeah, you have a few crazy ones, just like you do in your own family, crazy uncle, whatever, right? Like that's how
we got
goes.
A few folks we don't want to claim.
Yeah, but all the same, yeah, that's the way it is. But let's get into it. We've got lots to talk about, so much going on. And I'm just gonna start by saying, in the last episode, I tortured myself by picking against my own team for the first time I've ever done. I picked against the Canes more out of respect for the team that we were facing and just the odds that we were having. And it hated. I wanted to cheer against it. I still cheer against it. I would be delighted to see us move on. And then I watched the first two games of this series. Holy cow. We're going to bring Mike in now. Mike Solarte. When people and experts were picking this series winner for this one, a lot of them, like, I'd say it was like a 50-50 split, right? They were thinking half Canes, kind of half New Jersey. But did anyone expect to see the type of hockey that we saw in the first two games?
Well, that's a really good question, because I think if you look at the way the regular year played out, those two teams were, steak and eggs. They went together. They were always, for 1-2. Jersey made a nice run to get into position 2 in the Metro. They went on a nice little heater there. But when the playoffs began and Jersey lost the first 2 games on home ice to the Rangers, it was like, uh-oh, what's going on here with second place team in the division? And history's repeated itself here for New Jersey. The only difference is they lost the first 2 games on home ice, both in blowout fashion. They lost them on the road this time. Lindy Ruff has got this. He knows this team. He knows the buttons to push. I expect a much different team in Game 3. But if you're looking at previous history, then you're saying, okay, well, this is what the Devils have done 1 round ago. They lost the first 2 at home, won the next 2 on the road. They made it even, and then they ended up taking 2 of the 3 to end up beating the Rangers. I don't necessarily know that you expected it, because Carolina did not show this kind of offensive prowess throughout the entire series of round 1. But I think Game 1, I mean, I've known Rod Brindamore since his time being acquired with by the Hurricanes in that trade with Philly, and because I was in Raleigh at the time, so I've known Rod. And when he became the head coach, we've had conversations, and he show me a better coach in the league, top to bottom overall. And I know he's not a finalist for the Jack Adams this year. Whatever. I mean,
Why?
Whatever.
Why isn't he?
The 3 candidates, the 3 nominees, I think are very worthy. I'm not, but Rod's team is loaded with talent, and he's squeezed a lot of juice out of that group. So, I think that probably worked against him in terms of the voting, because they've been so good consistently under his watch. But knowing what Rod said after Game 1, Devils coming off that 7-game emotional series with the Rangers, they probably left most of their legs in the luggage in that first period, and that's where Carolina got up to the big lead. But they were much better in the first period in Game 2, and then we saw Carolina, make landfall, so to speak, with those 4 goals in that second period. And it was like, okay, now we're starting to see something here, because the Devils put forth a really solid 20 minutes, and Carolina never blinked. And in that second period, they got their wheels going, full speed, scored the 4 goals, KK with 2, and it was, heck, they had the goal called back for the goaltender interference, even though didn't look to me that I think it was Natchez went to the net. And
No, it was Jarvis.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jarvis went to the net.
Yeah.
And Jarvis didn't even touch Akira Schmidt. It was the defenseman's stick that got into the chest protector, and Jarvis hit the shaft of the stick, and that's what caused the goaltender to spin out of control when Shea ended up putting the puck in the net, and they waved it off for goaltender interference. But I mean, whatever, they came back and scored 30 seconds later on that wild scramble where Slavo hit the post, and then Netchi scored in a high slot after whiffing on the first shot. So it's one of those things where this team right now, Carolina has done everything well. I think Game 1 was their best game of the playoffs, and they won that game, getting off to the fast start. They never let out, never let up on the pressure. Game 2, even first period. Second period, they score a bunch of goals and they stay with their game. So this is what we saw from Carolina in the regular season, and we've seen it through the first 2 games of this series. But we've talked. It's not over. I mean, we know it's not over. We know the Devils they're gonna push back. They're gonna have the home crowd going in games 3 and 4, and it's gonna be. I mean, this is still gonna be a series. Now, if Carolina ends up winning Game 3 in a similar fashion, then I think you put a fork in the Devils. I think they're done. But they're just, and they are much like Carolina was a couple years ago. They got Carolina a couple years ago. A lot of folks would say they were ahead of where they should be, and I think the Devils. I mean, a lot of folks at the beginning of the year thought the Devils were maybe a wild card 1, maybe a wild card 2, not a contender for the division. They've grown quickly under Lindy Ruff, so they're going to be a problem in that division for years to come, because they got a nice young group. They're very quick. And their goaltending is obviously very, very good. I mean, Akira Schmidt, nobody knew anything about the guy. They throw him in there for Vanacek as the series is going along with the Rangers, and suddenly the Rangers don't know, where the net is. So, this thing is far from over, in my opinion.
Certainly far from over, and it wasn't even just the fact that they were ahead of time based on the entire year. I heard so many people say when they lost the first two games to the Rangers, they said, yeah, this is what you would expect. Like they're experiencing actual playoff hockey for the first time. And it's just kind of, they'll be out this year, but watch for them ahead. Like that, they took that whole story for the year and compacted it again, saying, and we all know playoff hockey is way different than the regular season. It's just different.
Yeah.
Although I would say, and I'll throw this out there, is playoff hockey really that different for the Hurricanes? The Hurricanes kind of play this style all the time. This is how they play. So is it that much different? Is that an advantage?
I think that the one thing that we're seeing in these playoffs is that, credit to the Islanders. The Islanders were out hitting Carolina at every turn, and the Devils were trying to impose some physicality as well. But, if you've got speed, you can't hit what you can't catch. And, teams have trouble with Carolina's speed to a certain degree. There is a little bit less room out there. As is the norm in playoff hockey, the gaps are tighter, the guys are finishing their checks. But I think that to your point, that Carolina plays this style, they've actually been able to adapt a little bit to the reduced room that the forecheck is providing, or the defense is providing in the back end. They've been actually able to adapt and show a little bit more moxie, show a little bit more grit. And for the most part, in the regular season, Carolina is a pretty highly skilled team, a lot of speed, and but they've shown that if they need to, if Jordan Staal needs to throw a body check, or Jesper Fast needs to throw a body check, or Jesperi Kotkaniemi needs to hit somebody coming out of the zone, they will do that. And so it's nice to see that, and it all filters down from the top. I mean, a guy that knows what it's like to get his nose dirty in the playoffs is Rod Brind'Amour, and that's been passed down to these guys, and they get it. And there's obviously there's great leadership in the room when you look at a guy like Jordan Staal, who's been through the wars and has won the Stanley Cup in his career. The young guys that haven't done that, the Ahos, the Jarvises, the Teravainens I think Carolina's missing him a little bit in this series. I mean, imagine what they'd be like with Teravainen and Svechnikov right now. I mean, they'd be legit scary. I think this is a group though that's been able to adapt without those goal scorers contributing and being on the ice, and they've been able to adapt around the forwards that are drawing in. Whether you get Mackenzie McEachern coming in, or you sit down Puljujärvi and plug him in. You got Derek Stepan, who's been around the block a bunch. Jordan Martinook plays with his hair on fire at 700 miles an hour. I mean, these are all, and all this stuff is the guys are picking this up by osmosis. They're seeing it. They're like, oh, that's pretty cool. I want to do that. So I'm going to internalize that and do my part to be that guy too. So you're getting that top to bottom through all four lines and all three sets of D, all six defensemen. So it's been it has been nice to see this group kind of, take another step forward and do what they're doing so far in this series. But again, with all that being said, I still caution everybody that there's another team on the ice that's going to be fighting for their life now that they've got to win 4 games in 5 tries. That's not easy. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be backed into a corner. They're going to be desperate, and they're going to give everything they've got.
100%.
Real quick, Ray, to piggyback on something Mike said, this is the style of hockey Carolina wants to play. Like, we're seeing Carolina hockey in action. They've picked up the physicality, as Mike said, but not in the way the Islanders did. The Islanders tried to come at you and knock you off your game at the expense of playing their game, if that makes sense. Like, they went too far with it, and the Hurricanes aren't doing that. They're being physical at the right times in position. So whereas the Islanders were just coming at you, we're just going to wear you down and then try and win games. The Hurricanes are saying, oh no, we're going to hit you when we can hit you. We're going to let you go when we need to let you go, and play good positional hockey, which is what they're good at.
Yeah.
The speed thing works for both teams. And as fast as New Jersey is, and I keep hearing the national, media, how New Jersey's fast. Have they not seen the wheels on like Chatfield? I mean, this kid is
wow.
new on the team coming out of the HL. But when I saw him last year in the Calder Cup, I saw then the skating ability this kid has, and how many times has he come back and covered up a mistake where you weren't that worried about it, right?
Yeah,
So,
and that's again that's that's kind of the system that the Hurricanes play with. Your D's going to step up and be offensive when need be, but if you miss on a pinch, you better be going back the other way, as fast as you can. I should point out too that you bring up a good point there about the fact that the Islanders were being physical and trying to take Carolina off their game, off their skating game. You saw a lot of the extracurricular stuff after the whistle in round one, the pushing, the shoving, the hairy eyeball, the glove in the face, all that stuff. Not seeing a lot of that in this series, and it's a byproduct of a couple of things. I think both teams don't really like doing that stuff to begin with. Both teams really aren't equipped to do that stuff afterwards. But then I think you also have the Lindy Ruff, Rod Brindamore respect factor. Both teams coached by guys, and Ruff, when he played, if you remember, I know that the podcast guys know this, but Ruff, when he played, he was a bad dude. Like he was a physical, tough SOB. Brindamore was a physical, tough SOB. Lindy would drop the mitts more than Rod would, but Rod wasn't afraid. He wasn't going to back down. But I think I think you're not seeing that extra garbage after the whistle because these two teams they play the right way. They play the right. You're going to see the scuffle every now and again, but it hasn't happened with as much frequency as we saw in the first round with the Islanders. And to your point, I think it was the Islanders want to get in there. Oh, let's pack one of their guys off in a coincidental penalty and see if we can take advantage. They're not seeing that in this series, which is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, it was the Islanders played just shy of Shoresy hockey, and Brad knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, that was just crazy, right? Look, so Brad and I, of course, we're seeing the game through the TV lens, the camera lens, right? And we don't necessarily see everything going on. When you're in the barn, when you're in the PNC, you can see things that we don't because the camera's following the puck. Bruce, Matt, I believe you both at games 1 and 2, or which games did you see? And if you could kind of give us a lowdown. I mean, as Bruce, you were pretty popular dealing with a lot of things going on with the jersey and stuff, people taking your eyes off the ice, but you can give us a perspective that Brad and I can't. So what do you think of what you've seen so far and what you saw in the building?
Yeah, I was at game 1. I wanted to go to game 2, but I couldn't make it. But yeah, I mean, to Mike's point, they're just so fast. It's unbelievable doing it without like Pacioretty, Svechnikov, these guys who are like dominant hockey players, right? Who you look at as like some of the leaders on the team. They're doing it with these with these people who are, as a newer Canes fan, I haven't followed a ton of. Like Jarvis has been dominant in this series, right? You watch them in game 1, and I mean, the Devils' forecheck was smothered, I would just say the least, right? In that first game, people were falling all over the ice, and it could have been due to like tired legs coming out of a rough series with the Rangers, but they can't pick it up. And it's just unbelievable seeing like this pace that they're playing, like the passes they're making, the accuracy, everything's coming together for this team. And when you're watching it in person, it's unbelievable to see, right? Because to your point, it's when you're watching it on TV, it's accelerated when you're there, right? When you're watching it in person. And yes, it's been unbelievable.
Matt, how about you? Were you at some of the games or?
No, I haven't been able to make it. I don't make it out to a lot of games. I got a little munchkin running around, so I can't.
Really there you go.
Awesome.
That's okay though. But give us a breakdown of what you thought, how these first 2 games have gone. Like, did you expect us to be outscoring the Devils 11-2?
No, I didn't think it would be that much of a blowout, but I mean, everybody's riding really high, and we'll see what they do today. I just, part of me in the back of my head has that little bit of caution of we blew out the Bruins in the first 2 games a year or 2 ago. We absolutely annihilated them, and then we took it to game 7. So I always have that little bit of caution there of getting too excited.
Well, and it makes sense, right? Brad, you have something here.
I have a question for Bruce. So Bruce, you're a newer Caniac, but you're a Philly guy. Can you tell the world is the music in the PNC piped in? Is the crowd noise piped in, or is it really that loud? Your honest take, not because you're on the show, but as a newer Caniac who's, you said like when they're playing Philly, you're a Philly guy. Your impression of the fans at PNC?
I mean, we were joking about this before we started recording, right? That place is explosive, right? I mean, you can barely hear the siren, which is supposed to be one of the loudest things over the crowd. I mean, they went nuts for me putting a jersey on. You can accelerate that when they're winning, they're scoring goal after goal, because every time it's just, you get a couple more beers and you get a little more louder, right? And these people are just, it's unbelievable, right? How loud that place is. Now, it's a great fan experience. Even if people are visiting, I always tell, every time my buddies are coming to town, I always tell them like, hey, we got to go to Canes game, because it's just regular season is just as loud, right? And the playoffs are, to another level. It's a really great experience.
Awesome. Mike Foreman, who works for the Hurricanes, posted the picture that one of his framed panoramic was knocked off the wall when he came back into his office because the building was shaking and apparently knocked it off the wall. He posted that 3 or 4 days ago, which is phenomenal. But it's
wow.
If you've never been to a Canes game and you say, oh, they pipe in music and it's not that loud, just go to a Canes game. Just go.
You'll see.
Yeah, you'll know. A couple of quick thoughts, Ray, just real quick.
Let me jump in there because I grew up in Chicago. My apologies to Bruce, but I celebrated 2010 very, very loudly in my home. Patrick Kane still scored. It was amazing. I'm not rubbing it in a little. I am a little.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little. I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up watching the Blackhawks in the old Chicago Stadium. And for those that don't know, the barn was knocked down in 1994, I believe, to make way for the United Center. But the old Chicago Stadium, the maximum capacity for basketball, 17,317. Okay, so that's what you had inside that stadium, and the furthest seat from the ice was 100 feet. Okay, so it was the barn was, it was vertical. It was basically vertical, and the superstructure of that building, they built the organ, the pipe organ that was in that stadium. They had to build the pipes into the structure because it was so massive. It took 26 train cars to get all the pipes down from Wisconsin to put into the building. So they had to build the pipes into the structure. And they never put the organ like higher than like 3, because if you moved it, if you put it up to like 10, it would shatter every pane of glass in the building. So the organ itself was loud. But the fans, I mean, do yourself a favor, Google the national anthem from the All-Star game in Chicago. I want to say it's 91. And Google the anthem that Wayne Messmer sang. And the only reason you can hear Wayne Messmer is because his microphone was piped right into the broadcast. But the place went bananas. So, you had all these human beings. That place was loud as could be. And I was lucky enough to see, one of the Stanley Cup final games that season when they played Pittsburgh and got swept. But I mean, the place was crazy. I give you that background to say that PNC Arena may have more seats. They are just as loud as my memories of Chicago Stadium. And in 25 years of Hurricanes hockey, because it's 25 years since the team relocated now, that's the 25th season that we're all watching here. You now have a generation of young adults that know nothing in Raleigh other than Hurricanes hockey. And that's where we are with this, this franchise continuing to grow and flourish and blossom. And so, like I say, they're, old heads like me. I remember when the Hurricanes were the Hartford Whalers with, the Jeff Sandersons and the Kevin Deneen's and the Joel Quenvilles and, so on and so forth back in the green, the green and blue sweaters. But there are 25-year-olds and younger that don't know a life without the Carolina Hurricanes. And you're seeing this fan base continue to, embrace this team. And, it was a long road. I mean, there was a dark decade there where they didn't go to the playoffs, and people found other things to do. And I always said this when the team relocated from Hartford, is that the only way you're going to have this franchise continue to be viable, successful, and embraced is by putting a winning product out there. They've done that now for half a decade, and these fans, they're there. They appreciate it. So no, they're not piping in crowd noise. They're not enhancing anything. This is full. You're talking about a stadium filled with people that get a couple of beers in you. Well, you're tailgating beforehand, so you're walking in the bar and lubricated. So they're going to be loud from the opening draw, which is, to me, as a hockey guy, as I've been my whole life, I totally dig what's happening with the Hurricanes fan base, the Caniacs, and what they do night in and night out inside that rink.
My 9-year-old on Cam Ward night went absolutely ballistic. He loved every second of it. Now he had to wear headphones the whole game, but and just real quick, because Mike brought it up, happy birthday, belated birthday. May 6th, today's the 7th, May 6th, 1997, Peter Karmanos announces the move to Raleigh. So we missed birthday by a day. So happy birthday to our beloved Canes.
And it was about when was that? It was maybe February or something of that year that I was in the Raleigh Ice Caps office, the old ECHL team that was playing in Dorton Arena in the capital city, and about to go to lunch with Mark Miller, who was the play-by-play guy for that team. And he got a phone call and had to cancel his lunch with me because he had to dig up some numbers on youth hockey and how many rinks were in the area and all those things, because he had gotten a phone call while I was in his office from the Hartford Whalers, who wanted that kind of information. So they were doing the legwork about where do we want to go, and we want to see what we needed, what's available, how we can grow youth hockey there, and how we can be a good community partner. So I was on TV.
Shout out to him for getting them the right numbers, I guess.
I was in the room when the call happened. He's like, we're not going to lunch. The Whalers just called. I'm like, okay, I need to make some phone calls. So I started with some legwork, and I was on TV that night saying, Raleigh's about to get a hockey team, folks. It's going to be the Hartford Whalers, and here's why. And so the people that I talked to around the league were like, oh yeah, that's legit. They confirmed everything that I had heard. And so we were able to go on TV with that back then at the old WLFL Fox 22 back in the day. So that was, that's 100 years ago. And again, I think it predates our other two guests because they're young guys. So they're not the old guard like I am, but that was, again, the Hurricanes organization has done such a wonderful job over the years of continuing to be a part of the community. And now the Caniacs at this point of their history, they've got so much to cheer for, so much to be happy for, and so much to be loud for. And that's really a lot of fun.
So we've got a chance to we've broken down this series. Guys, what if we take a little spin around the league in this second round? Because there's lots of great hockey going on, some great series. We'll start we'll stay in the East, Leafs and Panthers. And I wanted to get all your guys' takes. If you've been following the Leafs dropping 2 games at home to the Panthers, who had just come off of beating the Bruins. I looked at this and said, you know what? The Leafs were basically Bobrovski'd in both games, because for the most part, the ice was tilted in Toronto's favor. They really played solid hockey. Lots of times as a fan, your team loses, you've got lots to complain about. You've got lots to point out. You can point out the huge mistakes and stuff like that. And you can still point out the mistakes, but there's so few. The problem is the Panthers are capitalizing on every opportunity that they get. And this is, what are we thinking here? Like, first of all, raise your hand if you thought the Panthers were going to beat the Leafs. Thank you. Yep. Oh, Brad, that's right. Brad did pick the...
Pretty sure I called that.
That's right.
I'm going to look it up to make sure I'm not lying, though.
I was like the Leafs. I don't know.
I lied. I said it'd be Leafs, but it would take them 7 games.
There you go. This is a crazy series going on. Bruce, what do you think? What have you been checking it out? What do you think about all this going on? Because the Leafs, they're in tough now.
I followed, because it makes me sad to see, because we traded them their goalie, how good he's playing, right? But he's been standing on his head. I mean, some of the saves he's making are unbelievable. But I've seen this comparison drawn a couple of times. It reminds me a ton of back in, I think it was 11 or 12, whenever that series was, when the Kings were like the 8 seed, right? And they came in and just stomped like 1, 2, and 3 seeds. It's very, very similar. Like they're fast, they're aggressive, they're making, to your point, like making tons of opportunities when they can get them. And, you know, at the end of the day, the thing that makes playoff hockey so exciting is like, if you have a goalie that is hot, there's a lot you can do a lot of mistakes and really capitalize, right, on having somebody who is essentially an octopus making these saves that are highlight reels essentially. So no, it's been interesting, right? I didn't think they would go up 2-1. I thought they would split. I'm interested to see, kind of what happens today, but they're just playing out of their minds, all right? Similar to the Canes, where they're fast. I mean, they're putting some of these hits on, they're aggressive, getting, just putting pucks on the net and making the most of it. It's been a fun watch for sure.
Matt, we'll get your take. We haven't heard from you for a while. What are you looking at in this series? Are anything surprising?
So I'm of the opinion that it's hard to outplay grit and outplay heart. And I think the Panthers have a lot of heart and they got a lot of drive behind them. I don't think the Leafs have that as much. I think the Leafs are we've got monster talent, but I don't think they have a unified driving purpose like the Panthers do. I think the Panthers are on a mission, and I think that's why they're ahead, to be honest.
Mike, what are you seeing in this?
Well, the fact that Toronto, as you aptly put it, got Bobrovski'd. I mean, that's a solid take on those first 2 games, because Bob was incredible. But this is a Florida team is the living, breathing definition of playing with house money. I mean, they got into the playoffs. They clinched their wild card, and then they go 7 with Boston, and like, okay, well, they had their moment. They upset the team that put together the greatest single season in NHL history. So good job, well on you, and on you, off you go. And they go into Toronto and like, we got 7 more games here, boys. So why not make the most of it? And yeah, Toronto has had the better of the play, but Florida has taken advantage of every break in the game that can go either way. Florida has jumped on it, taken advantage of it. I mean, Carter Verhaeghe's OT winner in Game 7. I mean, in Game 7 against Boston, it was like there was nothing there. There's a loose puck. Oh, now I have a shot and I'm below the dot. Bang. Let's go on to the next round. And anytime a loose puck comes through, you get guys sprung, you get goals scored at the other end, and you're like, wow, Toronto's actually Torontoing again when they shouldn't be Torontoing. This is a team that had a little bit of time to get ready for the next round, and they just don't have an answer in terms of beating Bobrovsky. And this is why Florida's paying him what they're paying him. This is the goaltender that they wanted. This is the guy that they signed, and this guy's playing like that guy. So if Toronto can figure that out in Game 3, and obviously their backs are against the wall. They've got to steal Game 3. They got to win Game 3, whether they steal it or dominate it or whatever. This is if they fail to do that here. You want to talk about a long summer. Be a Toronto Maple Leaf in the summer if they get bounced in round 2 with, Matthews and Tavares and Marner and the collection of characters that they've got there. I mean, it'd be like the Yankees losing in a wild card game. First, why are you in the wild card game? And second, why'd you lose it? It's that level in Canada. I mean, because Toronto is Canada's team.
And it's funny you talk about long summers, man. Toronto Maple Leaf fans, that's all they always have, long summers. They just finally made it through the first round for the first time in 19. So it's just crazy. And Bruce, you got something here. There's something about a Samsonov. It's Samsonov, not Samsonov. Interview about Bobrovsky.
Yeah, so it was. I was cracking up. So after the game, they were like, "So what do you think about Bobrovsky's goaltending? And do you think you can play up to his level?" And they were trying to make comparisons, and he's like, "I don't give a." And you have to look at the interview. It is.
That's outstanding. Well, we will have to find that. And you know what, Brad, this is like I'm in the house with a Leafs fan, and I'm cheering for them hard. But I look at here's a crazy thing. Until yesterday, the numbers may have changed, but Vegas still has the Leafs as a road favorite. That's
a choice.
I know it's it's weird. I watching this now that now that the Panthers have home ice, they could just make life even more miserable for the Leafs. How do the Leafs still have the home ice? How do they have road favorites in Vegas? They don't normally.
No, so I have a couple of thoughts about the series. To answer your question, Vegas doesn't predict winners and losers. Vegas plays the odds to maximize profit. So remember that when you see betting odds. Now, those odds tend to follow who is likely to win. Like it does follow that trend, but ultimately it's about maximizing capital. So I don't put a ton of stock into odds. I mean, it's, the Leafs should win. I mean, the fact they're down 2-0 to the Panthers is kind of irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
Statistically, if you played 1 million games, it would be relevant. But these are, it's a 7-game series. Anybody can win any of those 7 games. So that's one. Anderson coming into to round 1, kind of parallels Bobrovsky to me a little bit, right? He was signed as the guy and hasn't been playing that way. Anderson, I think, was 0-12 in potential series clinching games until game 6 of round 1. And he's playing like a guy with something to prove, as is Bobrovsky. And not to mention Alex Lyon, former Chicago Wolf Alex Lyon, stealing that game in Boston, right?
Yeah.
In the first round.
Former Chicago Wolf, former Charlotte Checker, former
the guy's bouncing around a little bit. I was happy to see him get out there and my Lion jersey should be on the way. I made that promise if Florida won the series that I was getting a Lion jersey. Hopefully it's been shipped.
There you go.
The other two things about the series would be Chairman Mo, right? The beloved and most hated Hurricane. Well, maybe not most hated because we've had other coaches in Carolina who I think would be most hated, but Coach Mo, we love him as a person and often hated him as a coach, right? When they signed him in Florida with that offense, President's Trophy winning, I said, that's not his style of play. This is not going to work. And I was right until about late February, early March, I think. And now I think Mo has kind of realized that he needed to adjust, right, his defensive first game and give the guys a little more space, a little more freedom. And that's paying off by the bunches here in the playoffs. They said we were built to be a playoff team. You look at the regular season, they almost missed the playoffs, and we're like, oh, you got to get there first. But now they're in, and they're capitalizing on every advantage, like Mike said, right? It's the same thing the Hurricanes are doing. Never give up. Next guy up. Every shift you need to win. It's all the little battles are what win you series. The highlight reel goals, the things that you're going to see on Steve Dangle are fantastic, but it's all the little things that win games. So that's one. And then the other big thing from this series I see is the Leafs emotionally, I think, are so spent from winning round 1 and getting that giant King Kong sized monkey off their back that, on one level, if they don't go any further, people are like, hey, at least we got it round 1. But as Mike said, that with that roster and that talent, anything short of an Eastern Conference final is a failure. Plain and simple. If the Hurricanes had Pacioretty and Svechnikov and Teravainen, I'd say the same thing about the Canes. You can't be that loaded and not go to the Eastern Conference final. The difference is the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes had no individual players up for major awards this year, which means nobody's a standout because it really is a group effort. Which means that the coach should have been nominated for a Jack Adams because it's the system and the coaching that it's one or the other, right? If you don't have star players and you're saying we don't have a superstar, then it must be a team thing. If it's a team thing, then the coach has to be part of that. So why isn't the coach nominated? So that's another story. But the Hurricanes are built to not have a star player, a singular superstar for whom they can turn the game. They do not have an Austin Matthews who can put up 60 and just turn the tide in the way that he can. No slight to Sebastian Aho. But what the Canes have are a ton of 25-point guys. So when Svechnikov goes down with his 50 whatever points, the next guy up goes in. McEachern goes into round one and puts up more goals than $8.5 million Bo Horvat next season because the system works. The Leafs don't have that. The Leafs rely on a very talented group of forwards, middling defense, and Samsonov, who has been better than I expected him to be.
Yeah.
Right. And if those guys aren't clicking, then what, it's not as bad as the Oilers in my mind. And we all know how I feel about the Oilers.
Yeah.
It's not desperate in that way. I mean, they have a good team. They should being down 0-2 to the Panthers. They should still win the series.
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt in my mind they should win. I don't know that they're going to, but they should win the series.
Let me just jump in here for a second because I want to just touch on a couple of things just with your points that you just made. First off, Frederik Andersen, 0-12 in series clinching wins. He's never played in Toronto behind a defense like Carolina's got. This might be the best collection of defensemen that this team has ever seen.
Yeah, and we didn't see it all last year.
In their history. You're right. No, I'm saying, last year he was hurt with the lower body thing, the knee, whatever. And so the fact that he's never played behind a defense that has been that good, because Toronto is, to your point, their forwards are like a New York Yankees lineup. They got a lot of money tied up in a lot of guys, but their back end has never been as good as what Carolina's got top to bottom with their back six. So I think it was just, Freddie should have a fighting chance more so playing behind Carolina than he had in his entire time in Toronto.
Definitely.
And secondly, I'd like people to stop referencing Max Pacioretty because yes, he was signed to be that guy this time of year. I get that. But Patch has had the offseason injury with the Achilles, rehabbed his brains out, came back and played, 5 games?
5 games.
Yeah, he played 5 games before, unfortunately, suffering the injury again. He's never really been a full part of the on-ice product. And by that, 5 games is not a big enough sample size for any player. Jack Drury came up the first time he was called up and scored in his first game, and he's the future. Then he played a couple more games, and you really didn't. I don't know his numbers off the top of my head, but he wasn't a point a night guy over that small sample size, and he went back to Chicago. And I'm not trying to pick on Drury. I'm just saying his small sample size was not enough to say he's the next one.
Yeah.
So Max Pacioretty in this Hurricane system we don't know what he could be with this group over the long haul because the sample size is so small. So I think that the national broadcasts referencing Pacioretty, they're missing a superstar. They never had the superstar. They didn't have Andrei Svechnikov for this playoff run, but we know what he can do in the regular season. So you can quantify that saying that's a loss. That's a significant loss. Teuvo Teravainen's got his name on the cup. His broken thumb in game, whatever game it was against the Islanders, he's a known commodity. So they're missing him. Now, he's not necessarily a superstar, but he's definitely a big piece of what this team does at 5-on-5, at power play and penalty kill. So that's a known quantity in terms of what Carolina is missing. But and I'm not trying to badmouth Max Pacioretty in any way, shape, or form. I love what he's done in his career, but he hasn't been a part of this group enough that you can say, they're really missing him. You know what he can do in the past, but Father Time is undefeated. We don't know that Pacioretty, even if he were healthy and played 40 games with this team, we don't know what that would have been or what he would have done in the playoffs. So I just wish they would move off of that because it's really not fair to the Hurricanes, and it's really not fair to Pacioretty because Pacioretty, for all that he's done in his career, would it have been nice? Sure, but we don't know. And for all we know, as the playoffs had gone along, he might have been a third line center, playing third line minutes as opposed to being and getting time on the power play, that sort of thing. But we just don't know. So I just don't think it's fair to say that they're missing him because we don't know how he would have gone had he played the back half of the season. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And and kind of to tie all this together and what I was, before was Sebastian Aho leads the team in the postseason this year with 9 points. Your next 4 guys are Jarvis, Nazen, Fast, and Stahl. And then you got Burns, KK, and Natchez. The guys you expect to score, the guys who scored, as Mike said, like in the regular season, Natchez, for example, KK, who got hot there in the last half, are not the guys who are driving scoring in the playoffs. It's Jarvis, who was having kind of a sophomore slump. It's Stefan Nazen, who just decided to, he's been doing all the right things all year, but it's not him, it's the puck. It's just like, oh, I'm going to go 3 inches to the left from now on. And now they're going in, right? It's the system that Carolina has put into place allows for guys to have bad games. It allows for guys to have injuries. And nobody else right now has that. If you look at the Leafs, the Oilers, the Knights, if any of those teams lose one of their major cogs, they're probably done, right? So long story short, I hope the Leafs come back and at least make this a big, a good series, because in one level, I'm kind of rooting for them to do that. And they should. Like if they get knocked out by the Panthers, the fact they won round 1 is irrelevant. I mean, it should be lost in history. Like, oh, great, you won round 1, then you got bounced by, wild card 2.
Yeah, and that's a really good point there. To me, in a perfect world for Carolina, the Hurricanes make this a short series and get some more of that rest ahead of the Eastern Conference Final. And in a perfect world, Toronto bounces back, wins 2, and extends that series to at least 6. So you're going to get a team that's kind of like the Devils, a little bit worn down after an emotional series. And if Toronto does come back to win this series, that's going to be an emotional lift for that group, because they're down 0-2 and they end up advancing. That's going to be either team that comes out of the Atlantic is going to be a problem, because Florida, if they win that series, they're still playing with house money. If Toronto wins that series, they came back from a 2-0 deficit to advance. So they're going to be feeling pretty confident as well. So best thing for the Hurricanes to do is to shut the Devils down, get out of that thing, get a couple of days away again, like they had ahead of this round, and then and pick up the chase again.
100%. Let's move on to the West. And Brad touched on his favorite subject in the West, the Edmonton Oilers. And this series, it's tied at 1 after last night. And I think what we have learned in the Captain Obvious category is Vegas cannot take penalties. They absolutely cannot. And someone has to do something about Leon Draisaitl, who has decided that he is stepping out from the shadow of Connor McDavid, who is still contributing. Draisaitl has 6 goals in 2 games. We knew, and being here in Calgary, lots of opportunities to, see the Oilers up close. I get to see them, whenever I want. They're part of our network TV, right? So you can see those games. And my goodness, this power play is scoring on just an otherworldly level. And
it's best ever. They're at 50.6%. They're scoring 1 power play goal for every 2 power play chances they get. That is ridiculous.
It is.
And we've never seen it through this many games. Like, there are others. I want to say it was Colorado was at like 44% last year.
Yeah.
And they're above that. I mean, it's NHL Stats and Info posted that graphic, and you just they're like, my goodness. I mean, you stay out of the box, because if you draw anything. And that's what makes Edmonton so lethal, like they were back in the heyday, is that that's why the remember the Edmonton rule came in, because the 4-on-4 rule went away on offsetting coincidental minors, made it 4-on-4.
Yeah.
So that Dave Semenko or Dave Lumley or Marty McSorley would take a minor and take a guy with him to the box, so that'd be 4-on-4. So who hops over the boards? Gretzky, Curry, Coffey, Anderson. Bang, in the net. And they would go to town for 2 minutes, and they'd score a bunch of goals. And league's like, we need to fix this because that's a problem.
Yeah.
It made the game unfair because for the other team, because when you got a team that's so loaded, that's the strategy. That's what Glenn Sather did. That's what Glenn Sather and John Muckler did. They would take a guy, throw him over the boards, take somebody off with you so I can get some goals. Okay, thanks, coach. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, you roughing. Boom, go, both guys go. And okay, 99, 17, 9, 70, 7, get out there.
Yeah.
Goal. All right, I'm up 4-0. All right, we're good. I mean, and then they just skate around everybody for the next, 40 minutes or whatever was left, and then 2 points, off we go. So that's why the coincidental minor rule went from, okay, each team's got a minor, 5-on-5, doesn't affect the manpower.
I saw the stat where Draisaitl, I think he's on pace to break the record for the playoff, for most goals in a playoff run. It's insane. He's on fire.
I think the record is 20.
Yeah.
And he's already...
he has 11, right?
He has 11. That's right.
11. Yeah.
He had 5 in the first round. He's got 6 in 2 games.
2 games
of this series.
Unreal.
And while we're talking about, and we'll get to the other series, but a quick shout out to Joe Pavelski, who was knocked out in game 1 against Minnesota with a concussion, and then had 4 goals in the series opener against the Kraken, but lost.
Yeah.
That was, we'll get to that in a minute, but we got to shout out Joe Pa there, because that's pretty solid stuff.
For sure. And he's got 5 in that series too, right? Because I think he scored in the second game as well. Like, man, oh man, what we're seeing is just it's crazy. And look, I thought that the Knights and Oilers is going to be an outstanding series. But man, did they ever take the Knights to the woodshed yesterday? Like honestly, 20 minutes, the game was over. There was nothing else to watch. When you see them score that quickly and just suck the life out of the barn, and what do you do with them? I mean, aside from the obvious, which is don't take penalties. Because they are now getting, and I mentioned this to Brad last episode, the Oilers, I think, are the best team in the West right now because they're getting contributions from everywhere. And that's how they won the last series. They were getting goals from a bunch of the other players on the team. But now they're showing that those 2 players can just dominate the game and take the life out of the opposition. And now they're headed back to Edmonton, and that place is going to be fired up. I mean, the Oilers fans are just as rabid as the Hurricanes. And it's the pressure that the Oilers have been under for so long. I mean, there's an expectation right now that they make it to the Cup final because they were in the East final last year. And when Colorado went out in the first round, the Oilers are saying, there you go. Now we're guaranteed to be in the final. You know what I mean? And they're playing like it. They're playing like it right now. This is crazy. Just watching them.
I think they played like it in game 2. I think in game 1, you got to give Vegas credit for Vegas is no pushover. I mean, Vegas is Vegas is the top overall in the West now. And they're a team that, you say take the life out of that barn. That is no easy feat at T-Mobile Arena. No. Having seen Carolina play the Golden Knights there a couple of years ago, that place is electric. And those fans are passionate, they're rabid, and they are loud. And if you shoot the silencer into that place, you've done some work. So this is like you said at the outset, this has the makings of being a great series. And with it being 1-1, we're guaranteed at least 5 games of it. And I'm not going to be surprised if this thing ends up going 7, because Vegas again is going to find ways. But you mentioned round 1, when you're getting goals from Klim Kostin, and you're getting goals from Evander Kane will chip in the occasional marker there. They're still pretty solid in the back end with Darnell Nurse. And the group that he's with, Cody Cece's back there as well. I mean, you look at that group and you think, all right, they're just good enough. They don't have to be great because you have 97 and 29 doing their thing up front. But we didn't see them do this in the first series. We are seeing the power of a fully functional and operational Death Star. in Edmonton
Yeah.
right now. I mean, they are really, really dangerous when they've got those horses going. And those horses, in honor of the Kentucky Derby yesterday, those horses are at full speed.
No question.
Yeah, and Ray, you
Cool.
had the Oilers in 7. I
did.
had Vegas in 7. So
Okay, it's kind of.
I still think we're heading in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. Bruce,
I
what
really
do you think?
One was, I mean, as sloppy as the Oilers looked, I really do think it was chalked up to like a really brutal, round one with the Kings. They just looked tired in that first series. I still think that first game, like the Oilers still should have won it, even though Vegas, ended up winning. But you saw like after they got like their footing back, right? The last game was just dominant, right? It's just one of those things where I think that was like the biggest effect was that first series. It was a really physical 7 games. I think it was 7 games, right? And I think that's what you saw in that first game. But I think Edmonton's is going to run with it.
And you know what? With Vegas, Marchessault, Stone, man, he is so important to that team. It's funny, in the first round you could see the joy. There's an aura. Some players carry an aura with them. For those of you who enjoy D&D like I do, honestly, there's an aura about them that elevates everyone around him, all the players around him, and the pure unadulterated joy watching Mark Stone score was, you could see he's almost the lifeblood of the Knights. And he is something to watch out for. Brossoit got a real good look at how tough it is to be a goaltender when you're playing the Oilers, especially guys like Draisaitl, who is just an assassin. Honestly, like the puck gets on a stick and it's done. Like when you make a stop on him, you've done something. So everyone's going to have to turn it up a notch, and it's going to be great. Let's jump to Dallas and the Kraken. The Kraken confound me a little bit.
I just love the exasperated side, the Kraken.
This is I did not expect this out of a second-year team. Did you? They're playing fantastic, and
not after the draft,
and certainly not after the. No, you're right. At the draft, that didn't look like a team that would be tooth and nail with the Stars. Just 2 years later.
Did anybody expect Vegas to make the Stanley Cup final in their first year? I mean, when they were handcuffed and they couldn't go max salary cap, and George McPhee with his expansion draft, he found the right guys. Ron Francis found the right guys. It just took them a year to get to playing together, and they're much like Carolina. They're a team that does it top to bottom through the lineup, all 4 lines, all 3 sets of D. And Grubauer has been he's been pretty spectacular in the first round and in this round. He's made some incredible saves, and at times he's been under siege. But they're doing it with the collective. I mean, Matty Beniers is a nice player. He may not be finding the score sheet every night, but he's causing problems. You get contributions from guys. I'm not even talking about goal scorers here. I'm just talking about the style of play where guys are getting their nose dirty. Daniel Sprong is one guy that's having, I think, a pretty good series, even though the numbers may or may not reflect it. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but he's noticeable on the ice every night. And then, of course, they've got who's the guy they got from Toronto, or not Toronto, from Tampa. Is it Yanni Gourde?
That's yes.
I think Yanni Gourde.
Yeah.
I think it's Yanni Gourde, and he's a guy that, hey, he's got jewelry, so he can tell these kids what it's like and what to do and help them as they prepare. So Dave Haxtell, full marks for him, because I mean I didn't think he was any kind of coach when he had the Detroit job, but he's done a nice job with this group. But of course, as we've talked about earlier, Bobrovsky doing it to Toronto, Grubauer is doing his part to frustrate Dallas as best he can, and Dallas has been coming at him in waves. I mean, we talked about Pavelski; he's got 5 in 2 games. Jamie Benn is Jamie Benn. Their D, with former Hurricane Yanni Hakanpää back there on the back end is throwing his weight around like he's supposed to. And Ottinger in the net, pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
he's made some 10 bell saves, and you just look at that it's a collection now. Where the only team that's really doing it with stars in the second round is Edmonton. Everybody else is playing a complete, getting contributions from all four lines. Their D's doing the good job. They're getting great goaltending. That's pretty much everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction, and that's what we're seeing these teams that have these leads. And that's what we're seeing them all do.
Heiskanen has been great, but who I've noticed who's been missing for Dallas, and I think everyone else has too, is Robertson. Robertson is someone that you expected a lot more out of.
Sebastian Aho. You're expecting more contributions from Aho, even though he's got 9 points. He's doing it all, dishing it off, and letting other guys score, which is great. But Robo, like you're talking about, Robo's not an assist guy. Robo's a finisher, and he's not finishing yet. And that's a very good point on your part.
Yeah, it's just interesting watching this team. I still have anger about Eberle playing right now, based on what happened in the last series. There's a suspension that should have been at least 2 games. He had no business being in those first 2 games of the next round, but I have to leave that alone, unfortunately. And as I said last episode, Eberle is not a cheap shot artist. So what happened in that spot was surprising, and that might have been his reputation preceding what actually happened, basically saying, we're giving you a pass, you're not that guy, you had a brain fart, whatever, we're letting it go, even though the guy had like unbelievable neck issues. Just frightening. Bruce, what are you looking at here in this Kraken Stars battle?
Mike touched on it. I mean, Pavelski's been insane. I mean, that man is making his money like tipping and chipping all these pucks all over the place. He looks like Mr. Miyagi out there with a stick. It's unbelievable what he's doing.
It is.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm watching some of these goals. I haven't been following this series as closely, but I'm watching the highlights, like figuring out what's going on. And some of these, it's unbelievable. I think he is now, of all the current players, I mean, I think it's like Ovechkin, Crosby. He's like the 4th highest scoring player that's currently playing now of all time in the playoffs with goals, which is so cool to see. And he seems like a really, from his interviews and everything, just a great overall person. So it's cool, fun to see. But that young guy, what's his name, Johnston, I think he's 19. He's been really stepping up from what I've been seeing in the series. Super fast. I think he has 2 goals, couple assists going on. I think having a young player like that making such a contribution, right, to a very good Kraken team. To your point, right, when they first drafted that team, I was kind of confused. I was like, what are these pieces they're putting together? I don't know if this is going to be something for a while. And to make the run that they're making this year, right, is great to see. But Dallas, I think, is going to come out just with the experience they have. But the Kraken have a lot of really good building blocks for a long time. So I think that's a team that's not going to go anywhere, for a while.
Absolutely. Brad, your take on this one?
I think the Kraken are the Panthers of the West. They're playing with house money, right? Second-year team. Their expectations may have been to make the playoffs and make a run, but league-wide, that's just not what you expect from an expansion team. Vegas certainly showed that it can be done. The Kraken are showing that they can be done and be competitive. But they came out round 2, game 1, and I think kind of stunned the Stars. But I think the Stars are going to take that to heart. You and I both said Stars in 6.
Yeah.
And I think that's still going to be true. You can't win in 6 if you don't lose 2. But the things in Dallas's favor, and Dallas, if I had a second favorite team, it might be Dallas. One, there's the finish thing, right? I like the way they play. It's really fun to see their young guys. But their power play is kicking off at like almost 35% compared to 12% for the Kraken. That's huge. If this becomes a special teams battle, it's on, because the penalty kills are pretty close, like 85, 87, I think, something like that. And then the other thing that Dallas does that the Hurricanes do, another comparison I'm going to make, is they win faceoffs. They understand puck possession is one of the keys to winning the style of hockey, for example, the Canes play and the Dallas tends to play. 58% this series.
It's important.
I mean, if you take those draws in the offensive zone or the defensive zone, anything, honestly, the neutral zone, right? But if you have possession of the puck, you're halfway there.
Yeah,
right?
You're controlling the play.
You're controlling play. You're dictating who's going to be able to score and who's not. It's something I was, talking with my kiddo about. I said, if the Hurricanes have the puck for 40 minutes a game, the other team only has 20 minutes of opportunities to score. It doesn't matter how good they are, what the looks are, where they're on the ice. If you don't have the puck, you can't put the puck in the net, right? The occasional own goal, I'll give you that. Like you get the occasional Nick Wallin, put it behind your own goalie, but that's going to happen, right? If you want to be internet famous, do that. Steve Dangle, he'll make you famous. But the Kraken are a great story. I think they're going to play well. I think they are going to win at least one more in this series, but I don't see them being able to overcome the Stars. The Stars have been on the cusp for a while now, and they need to dig deep and find a way to make this happen, right? I would love to see a Stars Hurricanes Stanley Cup final. I know that's wishful thinking, and we're not there yet. We're only in round 2, but man, would that be fun.
We're hoping for the Finnish national inter-squad game.
Yes,
that's what we're hoping for.
I want to see yes, and I want the national media to learn how to pronounce the names, please.
Yeah,
because when they say Kotkaniemi, nice. I kind of cringe and hope. Luckily, my son doesn't know how that's being mispronounced yet. So
there you go.
It's not what you guys say it is.
I'm a big fan of the mispronunciation of Jordan Martinook that I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Albert.
Bob Roski. I'm like, Bob Ross was a painter. What's that got to do with Bobrovsky, who's in that? Like those are two different things.
He should really do Bob Roski should really do a Bob Ross thing. That would be outstanding.
Nate Chess is not 2 words.
Yeah,
it's just one.
That'll be my next custom jersey, is a Bob Ross picture on a Bob Ross.
See, and that'll do it right up for you. I bet.
We'll keep going with it.
You'll go from famous to infamous, Bruce. Unbelievable. That's a great idea. So here we go. We've talked about a lot here so far, but we got to circle back. Let's circle back to the Hurricanes to close out the show. Something that it's on me because I made the mistake of jumping ahead before we wrap this all up in a nice tight bow here. Round 1, hero for the Hurricanes. We get through the first round. Who is most responsible for that? Is there someone, or maybe even something, an aspect of the team that is responsible for their moving on to the second round? We'll start with Bruce.
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces to it. I mean, obviously we keep this, it's like a recurring theme, right? We're talking about the depth and, how these people are playing together, and some of the additions that the team's brought on, like Burns, for example, has been like just a dominant force, right? When it comes to that. But I think if you're going to pick somebody, I feel like it has to be Aho, right? Just from watching that game 1. I mean, both sides of the ice, he's making plays, he's aggressive, he's putting the puck for people to make a lot of opportunities off of, and he's just creative, right? Whether it's offense or defense. When I'm watching him play, it's, even though you guys are missing those big names, we won't bring up Pacioretty because obviously Mike has to. I'm just kidding.
Mike has spoken.
But he has stepped up big time. He's always been a name, it's associated with one of the big players on the Canes, but you look at him playing now and it's great to see that he's just made such a step up to be kind of like that leader while Svetch and all those guys are, recovering from what they're going through. So yeah, that would be my, my winner for the series.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, first off, the honorable mention goes to Bruce Barlow for having the emoji sweater. That's clutch. The emoji sweater. The emoji, by the way, that emoji. A little backstory. That was actually like a winning entry in the Butchergross OT Challenge years ago, where somebody used those 2 emojis, the ghost and the bear, as their pick, and that was and Gostibehere won the game. in OT, and that guy got picked because the emoji, and people were up in arms about it. Like, he didn't even write the name. And Booch is like, no, he wrote GhostBear. I knew exactly who he was talking about, Gostibehere. So that's cool. That is really cool. For me, the round one star was Antti Ranta, because with the exception of the second win by the Islanders, where they scored the 4 goals in the final 3 minutes of the third period or whatever, when it was, took a 2-goal lead and then bang bang they got 2 more. Ranta kept Carolina in all those games. I mean, he really did. He kept them in. He kept them in all 3 of the wins. There's no question about it, with the way that he played, and his play really was kind of the foundation for Carolina staying with their game, staying with what they were wanting to do, in spite of the Islanders trying to take them out of their game with the physicality and everything else. So without that solid goaltending from Ranta in that first round, and I know Freddie gets the credit for closing out the series, but I think that Ranta was just, to me, he was much the best consistently. Even in the games that they lost, he was still a reason that Carolina had a chance to win those games after when they were, trying to fight back. So to me, it was Ranta.
And I love your point. And it was so many times. It was probably one of the first times where the goals allowed, you just couldn't put on him. There were not really, and you know what I mean? Sometimes there's those soft goals and stuff. That's a great pick, Mike. And he just didn't. He wasn't like that. He made so many humongous saves and kept them in, and it was that's a great pick. That's
and all season long, Rod Brindamore didn't throw him out in the net 5 straight games. He didn't play 5 in a row, like last season in the playoffs, where he was leaned on as the guy.
Yeah,
he was starting. You could see that there were moments that he would let in the that you want that one back. There were a couple of those, but didn't see that in that Islander series. So yeah, that's. And so, in that 5th game, when, it got off the rails, okay, it's time to get Freddie. And if Freddie can go, it's time to get Freddie some work, and Anderson did the job to shut things down in 6.
Brad, what do you think?
So I'm going to choose somebody other than Ranta, because Mike chose Ranta, who's, I think, one of a few people it could be. But he really did. He's, goaltenders typically are your anchor. Right? Teams go as goaltenders go, for better, for worse. Given the injuries, especially losing Teravainen, during the series, losing Jack Drury during the series, you knew Svechnikov wasn't playing. I'm going with a forward who has shown that he is willing to embrace that next man up. And I'm going to go with Stefan Nazen.
Oh, man.
2 goals, 2 assists, net front present, laid the body, didn't take a shift off. If you're Carolina and you're going to go deep in these playoffs and win games, you have to embrace all those things. And he's done it. I mean, he's been kind of a journeyman. He's been in and out of the NHL and the AHL for a while. And I'm glad to see he's kind of found a home, and he's looking better, right? 4 points in the first round. I think he's picked up another one here in round 2, but he's a guy who is helping get the lethargic power play moving again. It's not single-handedly, but he's one of the guys who's benefiting from being in front of the net, getting those tips, right, getting those redirects. And now the power play is starting to come together a little bit. It's kind of a stutter start, right? We think, it's starting to come together, and then they take a step back, and it's starting to come together, which is going to happen. But I think Stefan Nazen is one of those guys who, Mackenzie McEachern, Seth Jarvis, you could name a few guys who the whole team kind of embodies this attitude. But I think Stefan Nazen is one who deserves a special shout out for just going in there, putting in the work. I love lunch bucket hockey players, right? Yeah. I love the guys that just go out there, do their job, give 100% every shift. And for me, he exemplifies that. He's my Kevin Adams Award winner for this year, of going out and doing his thing. Even if he's not scoring goals and getting points, he's out there every shift. He's doing his stuff. I love it.
Let's not overlook the fact, too, that Stefan Nazen is like the modern day Derek Ryan, who got into the league at an older age, and he's 30. He came in 29. Yeah. And, lunch bucket guy, like you say, he's, his game for an old guy like me resembles that, and I'm sure this will make you smile, Bruce, is a Tim Kerr style. He's a guy that's impossible to deal with in front of the net and has got great hands in tight. You're not going to find a Stefan Nason highlight goal because everything is 6 feet and out. It's a screen, it's a tip, it's a rebound. It's not pretty. It's lunch pail stuff. It's garbage goals, but they count just the same as the dangles through 4 guys.
Yes, they do.
He scores big ones. He scored big ones throughout his career, but again, it took him a long time to get to this spot. And, it took him a lot of seasoning, a lot of flavoring, but he has fit in nicely with this group. And he's not getting top line minutes, but you throw him in that PP2 group and good things can happen because he's hard to move in front of the net and he's such a great finisher.
So, if I were picking, Bruce, you beat me to the punch for that one. But in light of the fact that everyone's picked someone different, I'm going to go really deep and cerebral on this, which is so unlike me because cerebral and Raymond in the same sentence just doesn't happen.
You've had surgeries for that, right?
I have had two brain surgeries. Yeah, there's a reason for that. Rod Brindamore is the reason. And he's my pick specifically because of the way he has constructed the lines. He's changed up the lines. Brad, you and I and every Hurricane fan said, don't touch the third line. Just don't. You leave the third line alone. And we sometimes but what he has done, we've got Aho, Jarvis, and Nason, okay? That presence in the front of the net. He was put up there, perhaps out of necessity, but he brings the scoring and grit and everything is combined there and effort. So that's the second line now is KK, Fost, and Martinook. He took.
You would have never said that in October.
Never. And you took the 2 wings for Stahl and you brought them forward onto the second line. And let me tell you, Martinook is the puck retriever that guys like KK and Fost does it too. Quickie is another guy. He's a puck retrieval guy. He works so hard, but he can still score. KK, we're seeing him now. 2 goals. Look at the second goal that he scored in game 2. That was all, like KK put the finishing touches on it, but that was all Martinook and Fost, who just demanded the puck and wanted it more. And that's a message that, Lindy is going to be saying to, the Devils. You have to want the puck more than these guys and play like it. And right now you're not. Those guys are just taking over. You switch now, and now you bring back with Stahl, you have Natchez on his side, right? And Drury is there too. And so those guys, Stahl and Drury work so hard. Drury is a guy that he's getting the space. They just changed the lineups to provide grit and scoring in every single lineup. Look at the bottom line. Even Stastny, who scored the series winner, right? Alongside Yesse and Stepan. Stepan at the blue line, keeps it in, right? Throws it down. Puljujarvi is down by the net, they're all working hard. They create the turnover, and Stastny capitalizes. Now it was a fluke goal, but it does not underpin the effort that they put in. Rod Brindamore has found a way and a combination that makes every line dangerous, that you can do wave after wave after wave after wave with no fear of. There's always that time where coaches shorten up their benches and they take certain guys out of the play because it's just too important. Rod doesn't have to do that of his own working. So I'm taking Rod Brindamore for what he's done.
Real quick on Rod Brindamore. You know what Rod's done? It just hit me. I spend a lot of my job explaining complicated IT concepts to people who are not IT folks. So I do a lot of analogies and try and come up with visuals. Rod Brindamore has taken a puzzle, and instead of having all these unique, weird pieces, he said, I'm going to make a puzzle. I'm just going to make them all squares.
Yeah.
And they're all, they're all Hurricanes red, and you can mix them and match them in whatever way you want to, and they're going to work depending on what our needs are for any given time. Do we need a third line that has a little bit more oomph to spread out the other team's D? We can do that. Do we want to put all of our scoring on, the top line, the top two lines, because they only have one good D pair? We can do that. And that's what he's really done is he's made a team not just that works together, but it's plug and play. It really is. It's depending on the need of the day. I can have one scoring line. I can have 3 scoring lines. I can have, one shutdown line. I can have 2 good but not great shutdown lines. I can do all these things depending on what I'm seeing on the ice.
Yep.
And he can do it. And because he's done it all year, the guys feel comfortable. That third line was together longer than anybody, but you can see when Quickie's out there on like the second line, or if he's out there, even on the first line once in a while, totally comfortable. Like these guys get it. Like he's done this in a way that makes sense. These guys don't really need a lot of adjustment time. The system says, if this is the play, this is where you should be, whether you're a first line guy or a fourth line guy. Yeah. And they all buy into it. And that's just incredible.
I just had an idea for a t-shirt, is that we take a Bob Ross, standing in front of the canvas. The canvas has the Hurricanes logo on it, and Bob Ross is standing there holding the color palette, but instead of Bob Ross's face, it's Brindamore's.
Yeah,
I like it.
That's outstanding.
We'll get Matt back and have Matt put it on a jersey.
There you go.
Can I give one more honorable mention?
Yeah, 100%.
And this person does not get enough credit throughout the fan base, but please promote GM Don Waddell to president. Eric Tulsky, our assistant general manager, make him the GM before somebody snatches this guy up.
Oh my goodness.
Eric Tulsky, for those of you who don't know, he's the assistant general manager, right? He is Don's right-hand man. He is a data scientist. He is what helps drive the analytics. And in all cases, analytics in and of themselves don't mean anything. You need to have people who understand and can interpret the data in the right way. Eric is that guy for the Canes. I do not want to see him end up elsewhere. I joked the other day on Twitter, give him an 8x8, right? That's a max contract. Give him 8 years, give him the $8 million because he ain't making it now. But whatever you have to do to keep Eric in Carolina, please do it, because that guy is as critical a part of this team and the success that we've seen the last 5 years as Rod Brindamore or anybody else. GM Don Waddell, Eric is a foundational piece of this team. He deserves some credit for the success that we've had, not just this year, but over the last several years.
And you know what, Brad, when the national broadcasters go out there and say there are 5 Rod Brindamores on the ice, every line has 5 Rod Brindamores. That's where Eric comes in. That's Rod with his style. That's the players who have accepted it. That's everything all together. 5 Rod Brindamores on the ice is fantastic. Any team would want it. You know what I mean? Like just the effort and the work, the skill, the talent, it's all there. This has been an unbelievable episode. We had such a full it was full right at the start. Matt had to leave in the middle, and that's why he's disappeared. So
we'll try and get Matt back. I think we'd like to get Matt back on too, because Matt's been he's been a Candiac since 2005, so he's been around a while. He's been through the good times and the bad times. So we'd love to get him back on, get his full story at a later date. So we'll definitely reach out to Matt. Liberty Bell Jerseys is his Twitter info. I think it's LB Jerseys, if I recall. I'm going to confirm that real quick, but we do want to give a shout out to him, because if 100%. You want a GhostBear or any other kind of jersey done up custom, you can get it through the NHL and wait 6 weeks, or you can get it through Matt, and I don't know what his wait time is, but
Well, he's currently not taking other orders because he's loaded, and he's
he is.
And he's a busy man.
That's a good thing for him, because our station, Spectrum News One, did a story on him ahead of the Stadium Series game, and he showed our cameras some of his work, and it is impeccable. It is very, very good.
It is.
There you go.
I'm definitely going to trust him with that old CCM. I mean, that thing's twice as old as my kid.
And you guys have seen my sweater collection.
Yes.
I mean, I could give him work for years if need be to put names and numbers on a lot of my blanks. So
there will be no naked sweaters when Matt's in town.
There you go. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to having you in, and honestly, fantastic. I can't tell you how happy I am about your famousness. I guess now that's the wrong word for it, but that brought me so much joy outside of the game. When I saw you celebrate like that and take it all in, oh my gosh, it was great. And even better that we could get you in on the show. Because
thanks for coming on last minute, because I figured you were probably being inundated with all kinds of, DMs and retweets and ats and all those things. So,
and Brad,
I was really looking forward to this. This has been awesome. It's just always great to talk hockey, right? But it's just such like a surreal experience, and I'm hoping, knock on wood, that maybe we can drop these off and hopefully get them signed by Gostibehere. I was exchanging some notes with him and his some people over there. So
there you go. And of course, Mike Solarte, always a pleasure to have you join us. My goodness, the knowledge that you bring to every topic and your history, the fact that you're dropping Tim Kerr's name and Semenko and all of the rest of it, that speaks to my heart as someone who is much, much older than Bruce, knows all and re-experienced all those Oiler things. Even though it wasn't the Canes that you were talking about, you were speaking to my heart when you were talking about the Oilers and all the rest of it. Mike, love having you on the show. Please tell everyone where you're at, how they can find you, and we're going to tell everyone, get on the train with Mike Solarte. He is amazing.
Well, the best place, and I appreciate the nice words, thank you very much. Best place, as crazy as Twitter has become, is my Twitter account at Mike Solarte. MikeSolarte, except no substitutes. My avatar is the cartoon of Kevin Weeks from the cartoon game that the NHL did, which was, I thought, brilliant. I thought it was a stroke of genius. It was so fun. And I love Weeksy to pieces. And it's also got the blue check since Elon took all those away. So I made my own custom avatar there. But yeah, that's the best place. And if you're ever in North Carolina and I know there are Caniacs that watch us on Spectrum News One. We have the Chevrolet Sports Night each and every night at 10:30, and would love the company.
Awesome, Brad. This has been fantastic, hasn't it?
This is the best time of year, sir.
It always is. It always is. Of course, there is just one thing missing, though.
Go Cane.
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.